We're reconvening our meeting. Welcome to your November the 12th, rainy Tuesday, Johnston County Public Schools Board of Education meeting. We've already began our meeting, so we're reconvening. Got a couple of business items to take care of before we move on to my favorite part of the meeting. Approval of our October the 8th, 2019 regular session minutes. I entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Ronald Johnston, second by Teresa Grant. Any questions to those minutes? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. You'll notice that we do have two vacant seats up here. Todd Sutton and Tracy Zukowski have employment conflicts, so they're not with us today. Discussion and adjustment to the agenda, starting with Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have a Selma Elementary Advisory Council appointment.
Okay. We'll add that to 6-12. Ms. Sessoms, any adjustments? Dr. Smith?
I do have an additional advisory council appointment for McGees Crossroads Middle.
Okay, we'll put that at number 6-13. And Ms. Grant?
None, sir.
Dr. Cosby?
Yes, one additional item under my area, under Section C, items from the Chief of Staff and Communication. If you would add a number 5 on that, we'd like to give you a quick report on what happened with one of our school websites this past weekend.
All right, we have our adjusted agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the adjusted agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Teresa Grant, and seconded by Ronald Johnson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Adjusted agenda is approved 5-0. This boardroom is your boardroom. As we move on to special recognitions, I would ask that you could, a lot of people, a lot of parents come take pictures behind the board so they can get a good face shot of their student or their employee or their loved one. So please move around the boardroom like you wish during this presentation. Mr. Loris Gill.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wooten, Lady Vice Chair Dr. Smith, members of the board, Dr. Cosby, Mr. Jim Lawrence. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon for our very favorite part of our board meetings, which is our special recognitions. And we do have a group of students who I'm going to bring in a few minutes, and they will be receiving certificates and a small token of our appreciation. I'd like to thank Ms. Marianne Haynes, who always does such a great job getting all of these folks together and making certain that their parents and special guests are here. And again, parents and special guests, feel free to go behind our board members and get all of the pictures that you would like to have this afternoon. So I'm hoping those folks are coming in just a minute, but I will go find them if they're not here yet. Character education is a priority in Johnston County Public Schools, and this school year we are also highlighting how character education and our district's Portrait of a Graduate are working together, as you'll see over on our screens. The Portrait of a Graduate for November is problem solver and being a value creator, and we are very excited to be able to highlight these students. We're going to begin with Caleb Morgan from Glendale Kinley Elementary School. Caleb, if you will come on up here. And we're going to, if you look right there so we can talk about you. Stand right here 1 second. There you go. This way. All right. There we go. You're handsome. That's right. That's that camera right there. Caleb is a 5th grader and a terrific young man. He's consistently demonstrated a love for helping others, regardless of any situation that he is presented with. When Caleb's peers are presented with a problem, they feel comfortable with going to him for help and advice. He is a trusted, rational, and very natural problem solver. He has set many goals this school year, and it is obvious that one of his goals is to satisfy himself and others. One of the many examples that shows how he goes beyond a doubt and needs to have this reward is a student in the class was faced with some serious health issues. The student faced infection and falling behind in school. Caleb volunteered to help the student out on top of balancing his own responsibilities. He became a problem solver by identifying the help his peer needed, such as being a study buddy, a math tutor, and a friend. Most recently, he has taken on a new way to problem solve. Bullying is an issue with all students, and after having great conversations as an entire class, Caleb decided to take action against bullying. He teamed up with another student to spread bullying awareness. Through lots of brainstorming, he began to implement steps at the school. This included creating a petition and having others to spread the word, presenting this petition to his teachers and principal, and working with his guidance counselor and art teacher to create posters to be displayed around the school. Glendale Kinley is proud of Caleb Morgan, and we here in Johnston County Public Schools are as well. Congratulations, Caleb. Our next student is Savannah Creech. And Savannah, stand right here, everybody can see. Savannah is in 4th grade at Micro Elementary School. Savannah exemplifies what it means to be a problem solver and a value creator. Along with a group of friends, Savannah took the initiative to figure out how she could help the world become a better place, especially when it came to recycling. 2 years ago, while she was in 2nd grade, she set up a recycling program at Micro Elementary to ensure bottles and cans could be recycled to save the environment. Over the last 3 years, she's continued to support the program, making signs to encourage students and staff to recycle. She works with her team weekly and has proposed several ideas to the 4th grade teachers that would benefit our small community in a big way. It seems she's always looking for ideas. She truly cares about helping those in need and does it with a positive attitude and smile. She greets everyone she meets with a warm and caring smile and is the first to define the value in everything she does. We are proud of Savannah. She is a micro black widow, and our school's truly a better place. And Johnston County Public Schools is also proud of you. Congratulations. Our next young man, and you can just either place. Good gracious, he's tall.
I know, I'm totally embarrassing.
Christian Sykes is an 11th grader at North Johnston High School. North Johnston's SGA president, Christian Sykes, was born and raised in the small town of Pine Level. Throughout the years, Christian's been involved within his community and school. He's been in leadership positions such as the National Junior Honor Society president, outreach director and youth leader at his home church of Johnston Community Church, a first priority leader, North Johnston student section leader, editor of the yearbook, class of 2021 class president, and now North Johnston student government president. He's achieved such awards as North Johnston Citizenship Award and the Presidential Education Award. His personal belief is to always help people to be better around him to help better the world. He hopes that in his position as SGA president that he can be a voice for the ones who cannot speak physically and emotionally, and he is always proud to be called a Panther. Christian Sykes is the epitome of a natural-born leader. In the classroom, he always ensures other students around him understand the material. He actively tries to find ways to improve the school. He looks for improvements that can be made to the physical facilities and strives to be better with policies and procedures. He's an outstanding model of a student leader and a value creator. North Johnston High School is proud of Christian Sykes, and so are we here in Johnston County Public Schools. Congratulations. All right, come on. North Johnston Middle School is delighted to recognize Madian Mustapha in the 8th grade. Madian is an 8th grade student here at North Johnston Middle School. He has been selected as a person who is a problem solver and value creator. He serves as a positive role model for his peers. He's well-rounded while he participates in academic, athletic, and artistic endeavors. He's a member of the National Junior Honor Society and consistently maintains high averages in all of his classes. He works hard and is quick to assist his fellow students and teachers. If a task does not come easily to him, his teachers note that he works even harder and perseveres. While maintaining one of the highest grade point averages in the 7th grade class, he was a member of both the soccer and track team. This year, he's a member of the soccer team and is a well-respected member of his team. He's a talented member of the band and also known to work closely with other students who need assistance. His teachers and administration describe him as thoughtful and caring. He's an asset to North Johnston Middle School and an outstanding character is exhibited in everything he does. He's an outstanding student leader who creates character, possesses leadership skills, and excels. North Johnston Middle School is proud to introduce Median as a problem solver and value creator. They are proud of him, and so are we here in Johnston County Public Schools. Tremendous. Congratulations. Our next student comes to us from Pine Level Elementary School, and she is in 5th grade. Haidee Pavone is a 5th grader at Pine Level Elementary School. This young lady exemplifies the character trait problem solver and value creator. She cares about the environment and is always asking how people can make a difference in the world. During class changes, she seeks answers to questions to help make our school a better place. She has asked environmental questions at recess about flora and fauna. I still don't know what that is. And she's intrigued at how this phenomenon works naturally together. She is curious about how waste products impact the creatures that live on our playground and has taken it upon herself to clean up the playground instead of playing. Her first thought is, how can I make a difference? Her efforts have inspired others to take an interest in their surroundings as well. She is a tremendous problem solver and a value creator. They are proud of you at Pine Level, and so are we in Johnston County. Congratulations. At this time, we're going to let all of our recognitions go and shake our board members' hands, and parents and guests, you're welcome to take more photos. And then if you'll meet Miss Mary Ann, she'll take you out. Yes. Miss Mary Ann does.
Good afternoon. It's my privilege to introduce to you our Employees of the Month for November. If Mr. David Moore would please come forward and join me. Many of you know Mr. Moore. He serves as the Coordinator of Warehouse Services at Facility Services. He was nominated by Stephen Baker, Principal at Selma Middle School. Mr. Baker shared that we recently had an issue at our school. Mr. Moore immediately addressed our situation and made sure we knew what was going on every step of the way, whether that meant a phone call, a face-to-face meeting, or showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're very blessed to have him and his crew in Johnston County Public Schools. I found out that he even stopped by the school on that Sunday morning to check the situation before he went to church. His dedication to the students, staff, and system is an example to me and everyone else. He has a servant leader's heart, and no question was too small. I think Ms. Gill shared further about Mr. Moore that it is not uncommon for Mr. Moore to go and work after hours so that students and learning are not disrupted. His goal is to solve the problem and create lasting, positive relationships while doing so. Mr. Moore, we cannot thank you enough for what you do each and every day and on the weekends for our school system. Congratulations for being our Classified Employee of the Month. If you want to go ahead around. And many of you know Mr. Moore has a great singing voice as well. Mr. Moore? He does have a great haircut, Mr. Chair. Certificate, keychain, and a gift card. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our certified employee of the month is Mr. Eddie Castro. Mr. Castro, if you'll please come forward and join me. Mr. Castro serves as an exceptional children's teacher at Cooper Elementary School. He was nominated by a colleague, I think she may be here today. That individual shared that not only has Mr. Castro excelled in his position despite the intense duty requirements, but he has also been faced with obstacles such as having to change classrooms at the beginning of the school year, having to adjust his schedule to best support the teachers and students on his caseload, and other things. There are a few students that have come across, she says that there are very few students that she has come across who do not know Mr. C. She's witnessed Mr. Castro's ability to engage and empower a diverse group of EC students with regard to both social, emotional lessons and enhanced lessons to support areas for student academic growth. She's truly inspired by Mr. Castro, and she has no doubt that he has inspired each student that he supports. Oftentimes, we're not able to witness the flowers that grow from the seeds we plant within our students. However, it is the willingness of the planter, in this case, the educator, to prepare the foundation for which the seeds, knowledge, understanding, resilience, can grow, even in spite of obstacles that our students may face. Mr. Castro is without a doubt the epitome of an educator moving our school system from good to great. Mr. Castro, thank you so much for what you do each and every day at Cooper Elementary School for the students. Congratulations. And Mr. Castro, certificate, keychain, and a gift card. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Next on our agenda is advisory board appointments, and I'd like to get those appointments going with Ms. Terry Sessoms.
Principal Dana Jernigan at Benson Middle brings the following: new member appointments of 3 years for Elgin Alford, filling a vacant seat left by Braston Newton, and Jennifer Levitt, filling a vacant seat left by Angelica Alanis, terms to end in June 2022. Principal Anthony Whitaker at Four Oaks Middle brings a new member appointment of 3 years for Arishon Saunders, filling a vacant seat left by Dennis Durham, term to end in June 2022.
Ms. Sessoms, we'll also let that be as your motion to approve advisory board members as well. Ms. Grant.
Clayton Middle School Principal Susan Jones recommends new member appointment of 3 years for Angela Clenard, filling a vacant seat left by Patrice Hardy. New member appointments of 3 years each for Richard Rary and Melinda Slay, filling vacant seats, terms to end in June 2022. Cleveland High Principal Jenna Sauls-Hare recommends new member appointments of 3 years each for Ramona Robertson, Donald Thomas, Catherine Bogle, Catherine Daughtry, Brandy Ricapito, and Amanda Wolf, filling vacant seats, terms to end in June 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Grant, and we'll let it be the second to the motion to approve the advisory council members too. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Reading for Mr. Sutton. For North Johnston Middle School, Principal Heather Anders seeks new member appointments of 3 years for Kelvin Gibbs, filling a vacant seat left by Brian Batten and Brandy Jones. That term would end in June 2022. Also, for Mr. Sutton, Glendale Kinley Elementary Principal Cole Yarborough is seeking a new member appointment of 3 years for Kelly Sperry, filling a vacant seat. That term would end in June 2022. Also, the reappointment of member Jamie Wilkinson for 3 years. That term would also end in June 2022.
And you can go ahead and do Selma Elementary too, if you would like.
Yes, sir. With the add-on, Selma Elementary, Principal Rosado is recommending Dustin Williams for a 3-year appointment. That term would end June 15th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. McGees Crossroads Middle School Principal Arkeisha Shepherd is having thanks to Mariana Valdez and Brenda Harley for having served, and to replace them, the following to serve on the McGees Crossroads Middle School Advisory Council: Andres Patrick, Jason Gipe, Kelly Davis, DeVoice Holder, and Brianna Avery. At Westview Elementary, Principal Shanitra Mangum would like a new member appointment for Antoinette Etheridge, term to end June 2022. At Dixon Road, Principal Kenneth Bennett would like a reappointment of member Misty Zimmerman for 3 years. And at Meadow Elementary, Principal Sonia Grice would like new member appointments for 3 years each for Ashley Anderson and Tina Lee, who are filling vacant seats, terms to end June 2022.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I have appointments for Princeton Middle High, Mr. Jarvis Ellis, reappointment of members Shane Woodall, Twyla Wells, Malcolm Hinton, Kevin Doherty, Walter Martin, Peggy Starling, and Joseph Barber for 3-year terms each through June 2022. And I also like to thank Mark Wellens for his service at Princeton Middle High. He'll be rotating off the advisory council this year. Also for Tracy Zukowski, Corinth Holder High School, Principal Brian Johnson, a new member appointment for 3 years for Fred Foreman Sr., filling a vacant seat left by Eugenia James. Term will end on that term for June 2022. We have a motion and a second to approve these advisory board members. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Cosby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would ask that the board approve consent items 7A1A through 7A1J.
Entertain a motion to approve consent items.
So moved.
Motion by Ronald Johnson,
I'll second.
second by Terry Sessoms. Any questions on the consent items? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Next on my items is recognition of student leaders, and I'm delighted to have 2 young folks here with us today. That's been my pleasure to get to know recently. I'm very, very proud of both of them. I'm going to ask them to stand. I'm going to tell you a little about them, and I'm going to come out and give you a certificate, and we'll see if we can get someone to get a picture while we're at it. Okay. First of all, he's already been up and been recognized, but we're going to do it again. I'm going to tell you some of the same things that you already heard about him. So, Christian, if you would stand again, please, sir. Christian Sykes was born and raised in Pine Level. He's been very involved with his community and his school. He's been in many leadership positions, such as National Junior Honor Society President, Outreach Director and Youth Leader at his home church of Johnston Community Church, First Priority Leader, North Johnston Student Section Leader, Editor of North Johnston's Yearbook, Class of 2021 Class President, and now he's a Student Government President. He's been a recipient of the North Johnston Citizenship Award and the Presidential Education Award. His personal belief is to always help better the people around you to help better the world. He's just an outstanding young man, and I'm delighted he serves on my Student Leadership Advisory Committee. Christian, congratulations. And if you just remain standing, I'll come out in just a minute, okay? Also delighted to have from North Johnston, Mackenzie Gibson. Mackenzie is a very, very busy young lady, let me tell you. She's a senior at North Johnston High School. She enjoys athletics and she participates in volleyball, basketball, softball, and track. I don't know when she sleeps. She's received all conference awards for both basketball and volleyball. She's a member of the National Honor Society and has served as class president for each of her 4 years at North Johnston. Mackenzie gives back to her community by volunteering at the local elementary school and other community events. We're so proud of both of you, so let me come and present you with a little certificate.
Mr. Stanley. Welcome, sir.
How y'all doing this afternoon? Mr. Chairman, as Vice Chairman and members of the board, Dr. Cosby, we have got the audit concluded. Adam Sapuric from Anderson, Smith & Wyke is here to present the audit report to you. So Adam, if you'll come on up.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. All right, I'm going to attempt to condense what is a 300-hour audit into a 15-minute presentation. So I'm going to highlight a few items, but they are definitely not in the entirety of the information provided in the 75-page financial statement that you should all have been presented with, as well as a 3-page letter. As the governing body that actually hires us to audit management, we issue you a letter just letting you know that the audit went as planned, went fine. We didn't have any difficulties in conducting our procedures. We issued the statements in a timely manner. Management freely signed a representation letter. There were no big new accounting pronouncements that materially changed these financial statements. So that 3-page letter just kind of informs you of that the audit went as planned, and again, no difficulties. So the actual audit, the 75-page documents, couple of items to point out. Page 1 is the opinion letter. At the bottom of page 1, there's an opinion paragraph that essentially says that we believe that the financial statements fairly present the financial position of the school board at June 30, 2019, and the activities for the year then ended. So that was what's called an unmodified opinion letter, a clean opinion letter, if you would have it. So that is, again, on bottom paragraph of page 1. So the statements, they're all inclusive in that they treat you as if you were a corporation, but also treat you as if you were a governmental entity. So exhibits 1 and 2, while they're labeled exhibits 1 and 2, end up being a little difficult to actually read and understand and look at and actually identify the financial position of the board, because it includes assets and liabilities that you'll never have to pay, assets like buildings that you're never going to sell, and they really muddy up the difference between fund balance, which is what is important to a governmental entity. How much funding do we have in reserve, and what does our future funding look like, versus how much are we worth if we were a Fortune 500 company. So exhibits 1 and 2 are a balance sheet and income statement that, again, essentially treats you as if you were a public company. Value all of your assets, all of your liabilities. They even value portions of your liabilities that aren't even yours, that they belong to the state. When an individual retires, they're going to have their health care covered for the remainder of their life as long as they put in their years of service. Well, the state identifies and uses actuaries to calculate that liability and passes your percentage down to you, and that's what ends up on exhibits 1 and 2. So when we look at statements, we really look at the fund statements, and that's exhibits 3 and 4. Exhibits 3 and 4, again, are balance sheet and income statements for your funds, for your governmental funds. So if you're following along on page 13, exhibit 3 is, again, your balance sheet for your governmental funds. And to me, these next 3 pages are the most important pages in the booklet. Your governmental funds, your first fund, your general fund, your local fund, at the bottom of the first column, total fund balance for the general fund is $888,000, of which $317,000 is available for appropriation. So your $888,000, you have a little bit that is assigned or restricted for receivables. North Carolina law is written so that you can't spend money that you actually haven't collected. So if you have a receivable outstanding, you have to wait a whole year before you can actually budget that receivable to be spent. And then you've also set aside $541,000 for retirement payments to the retirement system. So leaving $317,000 of unassigned fund balance. That compares to $2.8 million of unassigned fund balance in the previous year, and $6.8 million of total fund balance in the previous year. So you've used essentially $6 million of fund balance in the current year. Last year's fund balance, you had $3.3 million assigned for your future budget for the 18-19 budget. And so you had $3.3 million of assigned fund balance and $2.8 million of unassigned, giving you that $6.8 million. Exhibit 4, which is starts on page 15, essentially shows you that exact number. The first column, your general fund, $64 million of revenue and expenditures, or $64 million of revenue, $70 million of expenditures, for a change in fund balance of a decrease of $5.9 million to going from the 6.8 to the 888,000. So again, those two numbers really most important in the statements. You also carry fund balance in your other special revenue fund, which totals $978,000. You have a $700,000 in capital outlay fund balance. And then the schools, they have their funds as well for their fees and stuff, and they've collected and have $2.3 million of fund balance. Are there any questions there? All right. So after those two statements, there's several statements that just show budget versus actual. And so we provide these, and they show no budget violation. So all expenditures were properly budgeted for. But if you turn to page 21, so those first two exhibits are the balance sheet and income statement, or the first two exhibits we talked about, exhibits 3 and 4. Balance sheet and income statement for your governmental funds. You also have two business type funds. You have your school food service fund and your child care fund. Those funds are in the business to make money. They actually operate like a business. They sell a service, or they provide a service. They sell food and collect revenues. So because of that, they actually have to record these assets and liabilities, like pension, like the post-retirement benefits, like the value of their kitchen equipment. They actually have to provide those in the fund. So these funds, when you add giant liabilities for pension and post-employment benefits, drastically decreases fund balance. You really can't look at fund balance in the child nutrition fund anymore to gauge financial health. But luckily, cash is always cash, and cash is always king. And cash, a lot of the federal guidelines around child nutrition center around how much cash you have. And so on page 21, the first column, the school food service fund, most important number here, $131,000 of cash on hand. That's a low number relative to the amount of revenue expenses flowing through that fund. And it's to the point, so if you look at cash, you have a cash flow statement that it actually gets provided on page 23. And at the end of the year, you're going to have the most cash you're ever going to have on hand in that child nutrition fund, because there's delays in the federal reimbursement. You serve food all month long and get receive the reimbursement amounts later in the next month. So as of June 30, after school's been out for almost a month, you've collected about all you're going to collect. So this is your highest cash balance. So when you look at $131,000 of cash during or at year end, it's not enough to sustain you through the cash-heavy months of October, November, December, January. So you're going to have to fund that fund cash flow-wise during the year. So at the end of the year, last year, you used $52,000 of cash. You went from $184,000 to $131,000. But that doesn't paint the true picture of the financial needs during the year of that fund. Because again, your reimbursements of $1 million per month really strain cash flow in that fund, and therefore, during the year, $131,000 isn't enough cash to sustain that. So those are the big takeaways, again, from those two, or those few exhibits on the business-type funds. Are there any questions there?
Any questions?
All right, the rest of the document is the notes going over your accounting policies, as well as our letters for compliance. Our audit is not only financial statement, it's also compliance related. There are several back letters that show that we believe that you materially agreed and followed all of the compliance requirements for your state and federal grants that we audited as major, and also that we noted no internal control deficiencies or material weaknesses over controls in conducting our audit. So those letters are also in the back. And this year we audited Title I and the State Public School Fund. State Public School Fund receives an audit every year for compliance because it is your major funding source. And then your federal funds get rotated once every 3 years. Title I, EC, Child Nutrition, those being the big federal programs that get audited for compliance. All right, I appreciate your time. My number is at the bottom of all of these letters. Oh, yeah.
First of all, thank you. This is a very comprehensive report, and we appreciate you and your team coming in and doing this. Dr. Cosby and Chairman Wooten, given our current financial situation, I would like to request that we have a monthly report on expenditures as well as revenue, but most definitely expenditures, so that we can keep our finger on the pulse.
We can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you, Art.
And we have several policy updates and reviews to deal with. David Pierce, if you'd come and handle it.
Welcome, Dr. Pierce.
Hello, hello. We'll spend a little bit of time with each other today. The Policy Review Committee has been very busy, so good evening, Chairman Wooten, Lady Vice Chair, Dr. Smith, Dr. Cosby, members of the board, Mr. Jim Lawrence. I have 8 items, and they're all for information. We're going to start with Exhibit 7A4, which is public address to the board. Policy 1250 was last amended on February 10th, 2009. The policy was revised and brought to you in September for information and sent back to Policy Review in October for further revisions. I can tell you the Policy Review has spent a lot of time on this policy to get it right. The following additional revisions have been made to the policy: to allow sign-up in person with the superintendent's designee at the Johnston County Public Schools Board of Education, Evander Simpson Building, prior to the beginning of the regular board meeting. Limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments will be limited to matters relating to the school system. For complaints or concerns about the performance of school personnel, student issues, or any other confidential matter, the board suggests that the concern be submitted to the school principal, the Johnston County Public School System official responsible for the program or facility, or to the superintendent. The language, and also that language is profane or threatening, should not be used. And Section C that was formerly in the policy has been deleted. It is the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 1250, and it is presented for information.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, given that we have put this on the website and asked for public comment, we have considered this policy now for about 3 months. I would move that we go ahead and implement this under exigent circumstances so we can put this into effect in December, if that would meet the approval of our attorney.
Mr. Lawrence? I entertain a motion to move this to action item and entertain a motion to approve this policy due to the circumstances.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Smith,
Second.
second by Terry Sessoms. Any questions about the policy?
Just want to make a comment. I appreciate the Policy Review Committee going back to the drawing board and tweaking it a little bit more, listening to people's comments. Thank you so much for doing that.
I think it's best for all concerned, and I appreciate y'all's hard work on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Pierce?
Thank you, sir. Next is Exhibit 7A5, the Policy Code 1200 Board Meetings. Policy 1200 was last amended on June 8, 2004. This policy details the criteria for board meetings which are authorized by law and necessary to the efficient and proper operation of the school system. The policy was revised to allow the board to adopt a schedule of its regular meetings and times at the beginning of each school year. Additional revisions were made to clarify agenda consent items and the board's process for holding closed session. The proposed schedule for the remainder of the 2019-20 school year would be as follows: closed session at 4 p.m., open session at 5 p.m., and public comment at 6 p.m. on the dates that have already been determined the second Tuesday of each month. It is the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 1200 and is presented for information as well.
Entertain a motion.
Under Board Policy 1500, number 6, I would like to move that this policy be voted on today due to exigent circumstances.
Mr. Attorney, you good? Entertain a motion to approve Policy 1200 Board Meetings.
So moved.
Motion by Teresa Grant, second by Ronald Johnson. Any questions about the policy? I would like to mention that before we vote on it, that this is best for all stakeholders concerned, and even the board members have time to go to work for the day. Some might not like that, but this is great, a great policy, and I appreciate y'all's hard work on this.
I would like to add that, this policy as well as the previous policy that we just voted on are both attempts to make our board meetings more available and transparent to the public. As elected officials, we're here to serve the people, and anything that we can do to make this more available to our employees as well as our constituents is a good thing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Pierce?
Thank you. Next is Exhibit 7A6, which is Policy Code 4200, Code of Student Conduct. This policy was last amended on August 8, 2017, and this policy details the Student Code of Conduct, expectations, and prohibited conduct. The policy was revised for Code of Conduct Violation 38. So if you look through the whole policy, you may not see any revisions until number 38. Threat or false threat of mass violence on educational property. Specifically, it was revised to address threats with the addition of Section A, which states, causing or aiding and abetting by any means of communication to any person or groups of persons or to a public school or any office of the Board of Education making a threat or a report that an act of mass violence is going to occur on an educational property or a curricular or extracurricular activity sponsored by a school. It is recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 4200, and it is presented for information.
I'd like to move that due to the seriousness of the safety of our students and staff, that under Board Policy 1500, number 6, that this policy be voted on today due to exigent circumstances.
Due to circumstances, entertain a motion for the approval of Policy 4200. Ma'am?
May I just explain?
Yes, sir.
On that, the policy we had in place before addressed false threats, bomb hoaxes, things that were called into the school itself. Not specifically addressed threats that were made or actual threats were being made.
Definitely a good plan. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Smith, second by Ronald Johnson. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Next is Exhibit 7A7, Policy 3510, Field Trips. It was last amended on February 9, 2019. This policy allows for field trips that extend the instructional program or student organization. The trip must provide significant education value and should be the most effective means for accomplishing the instructional objectives. The policy has been revised to explain the authorization process for school trips, and a section was added to address non-school sponsored trips. It is a recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 3510 and is presented for information.
This is an information item. Any questions on Policy 3510, field trips? Dr.
All right.
Pierce.
Exhibit 7A8, Policy Code 3420, which is currently honor roll recognition. It's been recommended for a name change to academic recognition. Policy 3420 was last amended on December 13, 2016. The policy strongly encourages programs and activities that recognize and reward excellence in student academic achievement, character, and leadership. The policy has been revised to address academic recognitions for all students. It specifically addresses the criteria for honor roll for students in 6th through 12th grades. It is a recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 3420, and it is also presented for information.
Dr. Pierce, paragraph 1 that begins, the Johnston County Board of Education strongly encourages programs, the first revised paragraph. It makes it sound like we're going to recognize a student from each school each month. If we could say, add a word or two that says the board will recognize I'm trying to articulate it. Someone will have to help me put it into words, but we're not going to recognize a student from every school every month. We're going to continue the practice, are we not, to recognize selected schools each month? Is that not what we're doing? So perhaps the school will recognize a student from selected schools each month? Would that make that clear, that we're not recognizing a student every month from every school?
Whatever you wish.
Just asking.
This is going to come next time?
Yeah.
This will come back next time for approval, so we can make some adjustments to
Good
it
deal.
between now and then.
Any more questions on Policy 3420? Dr. Pierce?
All right, we're Exhibit 7A9, Policy Code 7220, Individual School Accounts. This policy was last amended on February 9, 2010. This policy states the board shall appoint a treasurer for each school upon recommendation of the superintendent. The principal shall be responsible for the proper administration of financial activities of the school in accordance with the law and appropriate accounting practices and procedures. And this policy has been revised to add the following. Any violation of this policy or the accompanying regulation 7220R may be subject to disciplinary action up to and including dismissal from employment. Any person found in violation of this policy may be responsible for repayment of the funds. It is also the recommendation of Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 7220, and it is presented for information.
Any questions? Okay, sir.
Exhibit 7A10, Policy Code 4100, Assignment and Reassignment of Students. Policy 4100 was last amended on October 10th, 2017. This policy sets forth the expectations for student assignment and voluntary reassignment. The following revisions are being made to address the move to an online portal, the need to clarify reasons for request, set a timeline for reassignments, explains the process to appeal reassignments, and the addition of a fee for voluntary reassignments. Reasons for request have been revised to remove innovative learning environment and replace with school/program which require an application. Additional revisions were added to explain the process for application schools and that a fee will not be charged when applying for these programs. The voluntary reassignment section was revised to add a $10 non-refundable fee per request, sets the requirement for the parents or guardians to provide transportation, acknowledges that the students in high school will not be eligible for athletics for 365 days unless they receive a waiver, sets timelines from March 1st through April 30th for renewals of reassignment, and May 15th through June 30th for initial reassignments. Applicants may appeal a denial to the hearing officer, and a board panel may review the record to deliberate the reasons for an appeal if requested. Finally, all approved applicants must enroll within 15 days or the application will be revoked. It is the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 4100, and it is presented for information.
Any questions on 4100?
I have a comment. I'm hearing from parents in the community concerns about the $10 fee. What they want to know is, number one, if they have 3 children and they need to be reassigned, is that $10 for each child? Which could be a hardship because if these children are on free and reduced lunch, $30 may not sound like a lot to us, but it could mean the difference in groceries for a family. The other concern that has come up is the online access, making sure that parents who don't have internet, that we spell it out, what that process could look like for them.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Dr. Smith?
I had a question on the waiver for the athletics. Who signs off on the waiver for that?
This time, it's the superintendent's designee, but that has not been finalized for who that would be. But it would be a waiver that's turned in. It has a list of why they're asking for a waiver based on hardship or what the reason is. Right now, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association grants athletic eligibility for rising ninth graders. So wherever you start in ninth grade, you would automatically, you still need to fill the waiver out, but you would automatically get that. After that, you would not. You would have to apply for a waiver. Did I answer?
So there would be specific guidelines on why a waiver would be approved? You know, this is such a hot topic, this whole 365-day thing, having that waiting period. And we just need to make sure that we have consistency throughout the county on why these waivers would be approved.
So I think the original intent of reassignment is for academic purposes, and the waiver is meant to make it a secondary appeal to play sports. You're actually asking for reassignment due to a hardship. If you want to play sports, you need to appeal that otherwise. And that's what the group was trying to do in separating the two options there, that when you do a reassignment, you are doing it due to the hardship, not the athletic piece.
I understand what our goal is.
Gotcha.
People don't always think we're abiding by that. I just want to make sure we're very clear and very consistent with how this is done.
All good questions.
We'll look at that more before it comes back to you.
There is in Section 1 of voluntary reassignment that applicants who do not have online application can apply at the district office. We are happy to consider at the school as well. We're happy to amend that. I know that Ms. Whittington is furiously writing notes over there, but we are willing to consider that. So are we hearing from the board that your pleasure would be to have a $10 per family application fee as a consideration?
Correct, as opposed to $10 per child.
Any more questions? Dr. Pierce?
All right, and the last one is Policy 7A11, which is Exhibit Policy 7A10, Policy Code 4160, Tuition Students, Policy 4160 was last amended on June 14, 2016. This policy allows enrollment of students outside of Johnston County, but requires them to pay tuition if approved. The revisions clarify that tuition is due prior to the starting of school, and subsequent quarters and semesters payments must be made prior to the start of the quarter or semester. Any parent who has not paid will have enrollment revoked. It is the recommendation of Policy Review Committee to amend Policy 4160, and it is presented for information.
Any questions? Ms. Grant, scrambling, you got one, don't you?
It says, any enrollment request that is approved based on false information would be rescinded without refund. The next one, where they're not abiding by school rules and regulations, excessive absences, tardiness, or disciplinary referrals, I think that should also be without refund.
Any more questions? That's also information. Go ahead.
Can we back up? I'm sorry. Back to the previous one. There was one other.
Policy 4100.
Yes. There was one other comment that some of us received. The appeal hearing shall be heard by the hearing officer, and then the hearing officer would bring that information before the board if it was appealed. And some parents think that they should also be allowed to present information to the board, not just the hearing officer. We are, you know, we're going to great lengths to make some changes here today to give the public more access to us, and I think it would be wise to allow them to have that moment to speak as well.
Mr. Lawrence, would you address the rationale for that?
After that, if they disagree with the hearing officer's decision, the matter can be appealed to a board panel on the record. Whatever they had in there before, whatever they had presented to the hearing officer, all the arguments and everything would go before the board panel for consideration, instead of having, you know, the same thing that was heard before, heard again. That would be a discussion with the committee, and that's not unusual for any hearings to be heard on the record after it's initially submitted, argued, presented to the hearing officer. That's usual.
But you could legally do it
Well, and I would just like to add, I've heard both sides of it from parents. I've heard some parents say, we want to continue to have access to the board, as you said. I've also heard other parents say, I've already had to do this once. I had to take off work to be here, you know, for the hearing officer, and now I've got to take off work again, you know, to come back and present to the board. So, you know, I've heard it on both sides.
And I don't think we need to say that it's mandatory that the parent appear before the board, but that they're at least given the option to make a comment if they would like as well.
Any other questions? This is information, so
And just a comment, I guess, if we could hear from all the board members and the public, we post this online for comment. So any parent who has a concern, we've heard the board members' concerns, we would encourage people to go to the website and enter their opinions and questions. It's called Policies Under Review. You go to the Johnston County Board's website, go down to Board Policies, and it's there as Policies Under Review, and you can read the total transcript, all the changes that have been proposed, and comment on part or all of those changes. So we would encourage people to do that, so we get a really good overview of the expectation.
Thank you, that would be awesome.
any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Pierce. We will take a 5-minute recess. We'll reconvene our meeting. Mr. Ronald Johnson.
Good evening, colleagues. First, I'm going to start the same way I'm going to end. I'm going to start by thanking each and every one of my colleagues for giving me the green light to go forward with this program, which is the Johnston County Schools Superhero Initiative, which is a competency and literacy program based on comic books. It is geared towards increasing proficiency in reading for third grade students, and it's also mainly geared at improving the relationship of students, the youth, with public servants such as police, firefighters, nurses, doctors, EMTs, and military service veterans. How it works is students will be given a new comic book every month or a set of new comic books every month, and those comics will be theirs to keep. They will receive them and they will be given activities based on the content of those comic books. Now, a lot of times we recognize our students for certain character education traits. Ms. Roberts was so kind to give me some we have acknowledged in the past, those being persistence, optimism, kindness, working together, and valuing other people. I think that we can use these comic books, and I've put together a program, the high concept of a program, the framework, but I do need help putting together the low concept, which is the content and the day-to-day structure of this program. So how it will work is they will be given activities based on the third grade education standards. So the reading standards, I believe there are 9 to 11 of them, but it's discussing the setting, the plot, the character development, and the collaborative efforts of the characters involved with the story. With this superhero initiative, we are able to meet the students at their level. Right now, you can strike up a conversation with most third graders based on Captain America, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, or any other of 100 characters. So we're meeting them at their level with something that interests them. Now, the caveat of this, and I mentioned that it is geared to improve relationships with police, firefighters, and other public servants. Once a month, we will have a quote-unquote superhero come into a school, and they will visit with that third grade class, and they will tell the students about what they do. And the students will tell the superhero about the stories they read in those comic books. Now, whenever you can regurgitate or provide a context of what you read, you are learning. Therefore, you're motivated by someone new in front of you to tell them what you've learned. You're encouraging a relationship between youth and the police, which is a big deal to me. A little bit about my background is I'm a major crimes detective with the Smithfield Police Department. I'm also a business professor at Johnston Community College. So 3 things that are near and dear to me in my life are law enforcement, education, and obviously comic books. So this is 3 things that I can merge together and come up with something that could benefit so many students in Johnston County. Now, we also need community buy-in. So how this works is I've already spoken to a lot of local businesses. Rainbow Lanes, which is a second home for me because the 4th thing I love is bowling, has already agreed to do a superhero package for these kids. Now, another component of this is you have to be a superhero. So the third grade student has to act like a superhero, do your homework like a superhero, get grades like a superhero, and help others like a superhero. That fits into our character education, and it puts a whole new dynamic on it that's so relevant in pop culture. I was able to strike up a conversation with this young man based on Star Wars, and I felt like I'd known him for 100 years. But what we can do with this program is kind of give new energy to some of the standards that we have been tasked with delivering and making happen for our students. Now, I know Dr. Causby's getting ready to come up, and he's going to tell you basically we don't have a lot of funding for things like this. Fortunately, I have expressed this idea, and this is not a maybe, this is a definite. There are people in the community who are willing to fund a pilot program for 2 third grade classes in Johnston County. One I've already identified at West Smithfield Elementary. And the money is there, so it will not cost the taxpayers anything because this is seemingly a new program. And we talk about innovation, but sometimes innovation can be misconstrued as experimentation. This is not something that I thought about while I was playing cards one night and said, you know what, I'm going to throw this on a bunch of kids. It goes back to studies that have just recently came out where you give a child an iPad, an ebook, and they're seemingly distracted with the digital content of that delivery method. But if you give a kid a textbook, a solid textbook, something they can have, hold, and keep that is solely used for that purpose, then they tend to learn a little bit better. They don't get distracted because there's so many things in electronic format that can distract you. Maybe other things you want to do besides read, comprehend, and regurgitate. You know, this is going to be something that I'll work on. Like I said, I wanted to develop the high concept, get the framework out there, and let other people do it. But I do appreciate each of you giving me the opportunity. We talk about these traits, and we talk about, we want our children to be persistent. We want them to be optimistic, collaborative, kind. But as you get older, those traits are really simplistic. And if you look at transcending into our leaders and our citizens who are productive, you transcend into, empathy, generativity, which is preparing others. We have to prepare our students to prepare others. You look at mutuality. We need to get them to understand that, hey, what's good for me and what's good for someone else is a win for us all. You're looking at civil aspiration, and comic books have so much of what is right in this world. If you look at civil aspiration and wanting to do the right thing, you have three very different people, very different characters in Black Panther, Captain America, and Captain Marvel, but they all appreciate each other's differences and they work together to achieve a common goal. And if we can get our students to do that in a fun way, I think that's a win for us all. Does anyone have any questions?
Just one. You did say this was a third grade initiative?
It is a third grade initiative. I chose the third grade simply because I have a friend who is just as equally passionate about this as I am, and she happens to be a third grade teacher. So I hope that once we prove that this will work, because it will be funded. I am working now with the Johnston County Ed Foundation to figure out how those donors need to get the money to the program and do it the right way, because anything that's done in haste is typically done wrong. So we've taken our time with this. But it would start out as a third grade initiative. But if you go back to the Showcase of Stars and you look at how Triple S presented their performance and how excited they were to dress up like superheroes and how they went to other places dressed as superheroes and how excited those students were to see older students. So it would start out as a third grade initiative and move anywhere we could afford to move it.
Any other questions?
I just had a couple of comments.
Yes, ma'am.
One, just a brilliant idea. We've told you before what a great thing. Probably most anybody can remember the day that they loved reading comics. I still have comics from when I was a kid in my closet. Hadn't got rid of them. Not as many as you have, but
Yes,
but I
Put
have
me
a
on
few.
blast, but thank you.
Superheroes are still a big deal because you can still, you turn on the TV and there's a new show for superheroes or a new movie or whatever. Kids love it, grown-ups love it, and, it's something that, while it may get kids excited, might also get parents involved with the kids because we all love superheroes.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just a great idea. Curious, just so that you've got a few donors that are thinking about it, and just so if there's other people out there that you've piqued their interest, do you have an idea of what it would cost to get it into a classroom.
Yes, ma'am, for an entire year. And keep in mind, the kids will be able to keep these comic books. And I think there's something mentally correlative about collecting something and taking pride in something, because no offense to the younger generation, but right now they have nothing they really hold near and dear and keep. You know, with my grandmother, it could have been dishes. You know, with me, it was comic books. But right now we're in an age of use it, minimize it, move on. And I think there's a correlative thought process with, you know, fluid and crystallized intelligence and actually collecting something, because when you collect and take pride in something, you have it. So I would like to say that, but it would cost anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 per class per year, depending upon how many books they get. And right now I've got them targeted at 3 books a month, and they would be shipped here. And I would like to thank Memory Lane Comics in Wilmington, North Carolina. When I brought this idea up to them in June, they sent me a package of comic books, and I know that, you know, Mr. Williams delivered some to Mr. Yarborough, and there are teachers asking for these and wanting to be a part of this. So I'm hoping that it just comes off as successful and it's something that we can expand upon. But I'm thinking 2,500 to 3,500, depending upon how many books they get.
That sounds awesome. And I know for a lot of the Rotary clubs, literacy is a huge thing for them. So, you know, maybe some of the local Rotary clubs would like to get involved as well.
I didn't even think of that. That'd be awesome.
Well, my question is, where were you when I was teaching 2nd and 3rd grade? Because I would have loved this for my students.
I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade.
You
ma'am.
probably were. You probably were.
Was
But that's
reading-
still no excuse.
Reading his comic books.
I was
That's
reading my
right.
comic book. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is great. And I love the focus on the character development piece. But I can tell you, having taught little ones, they are so motivated by comic books. They will read comic books when they won't read anything else. So
Ma'am.
hat off to you.
Well, no, hats off to y'all, because when I sat up here and told you about it in closed session, y'all gave me the green light. Yeah, all of you have been supportive. It's just most recent as Dr. Smith sending me an email of encouragement. I think it was 5 days ago. You all have been great, and thank you so much for allowing me to do this. I appreciate it.
Mr. Johnston, before you leave, is there a business structure where you can go to the business community and, I mean, they might not be able to foot a $3,500 bill, but they might want to say, I'll give $250 or
Right.
$500 and sponsor it. Is there some type of structure?
And that's the
like-
last piece of it. I just contacted the Ed Foundation, and hopefully there could be something set up within a month or two where those contributions could start coming in.
I know there are businesses out there that won't support the schools. They might be able to support it covering for the whole school, but they, in bits and pieces, they will support this program. So
And one final piece, this will be at West Smithfield Elementary for sure. And if the kids do what they need to do, they get a superhero card, which I'm actually having designed now, that they will be able to take to businesses and get the superhero, you know, special if they do everything they're supposed to do. So there is that community buy-in, but hopefully, Mr. Chairman, we can have that set up through the Ed Foundation within 30 to 60 days. Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Dr. Cosby.
I wish I'd put this in comic book form. It would probably gone over better. Probably would not have actually helped our budget situation, but it would probably make it a whole lot more palatable to everyone. As all of you know, we're dealing with a local current expense budget situation that's not very pleasant, it's not very good. I gave you a kind of a 20,000-foot look at it at the last board meeting of where we actually were in regards to funding and what we needed to do to get through the situation. What I wanted to bring to you tonight is a follow-up as to where we are, what things we have identified, and what the numbers look like now. So if I can get the next chart up. When I first came here, I was informed that there was a budget problem, and began to look at it. I brought you some beginning numbers, preliminary kinds of numbers previously. As I got into it, studied and looked at it, you know, I came in early September. There had actually been a couple of months of the year past, July and August of the budget year, before I started looking at it. And what I found was, from dealing with the cabinet, that the cabinet and the former superintendent had begun to identify some areas of reductions that could take place to help with the budget. And so we codified what those are, identified those. And this first slide is things that were done prior to me coming on as interim superintendent. Okay, these were actual reductions. And I'm going to go down through them just quickly. I'm not going to do a lot of explanation. Most of them are fairly clarify themselves. First one, Choice Hub personnel is reduction of $300,000. Teaching, learning, coaching reductions reduced from 43 positions centrally to 17. That was a cut of $1.5 million. Some central clerical reductions, some extended employment time where folks like assistant principals, counselors, and folks worked in the summer. Some software reductions, some contract reductions, 3 CIE positions in central office cuts. Snacks, doesn't sound like much, but when you're serving anything significant snack-wise to this largest system, all the different meetings we have, it adds up over a lot of period of time. So the only folks we're feeding now of anything of nutritional value is the Board of Education. And if y'all decide to cut that, I will not be unhappy. But I'm not suggesting it, but everything else we cut out ain't doing any kind of meals. Video was an online program, but really has not been real popular, so we've cut that part of it. And then 8 operation directors positions. All of that was not total cuts. Some of it were moves, and some of it was made a month or two into the year. So that's the reason if you divide that by 8, it doesn't come out to what you would think a salary would be. But those were reductions that were made prior to me beginning to look at where we were in the budget. So the numbers that you heard from me last year were after all this was done. Because the way I arrived at where we are, working with our budget staff and financial staff, was to identify every single position that had been allocated system-wide, central office, schools, operations, everything, and cost every one of those out, what it would cost us for a full year with those salaries and benefits. To that, we added all the other things that had to be dealt with, such as insurance costs, property costs, just anything, insurance, salary increases, all those kind of areas. At that time, the need that we came up in the local current expense budget was, if I can go to the next chart, $83,868,550 is the revenues that we would need to fund all of that for this year. That was after those other reductions. Okay. We then began to look at additional reductions, identify, with the effort of keeping it as far away from the school as possible, and also not having anyone lose employment over any reductions. Okay. Unfortunately, when you're talking these bigger numbers, there's not some of the things that don't affect all aspects of the school system. So we're not happy with any of them, but there are things that we think we could live with. Reduction of $148,000 in local professional development. Doing away with discovery education software, $57,300. Post-graduation tracker software, $3,400. Some restart collaborative expenses that we were footing, $30,000. Movement of several technical contracts from local funding to some state funding. $500,000 reduction in our facilities maintenance budget. $15,000 reduction in special events funding. Public Information Office budget reduction of $10,000. Reduction in printing costs of $30,000, for example, doing that through not printing color report cards, but black and white report cards, things like that. A reduction in the lease of our copiers, $20,000. Supplies, materials, and travel. This does affect schools some, but it also significantly affects central office of $1,765,503. We made some adjustments to school allocations. When we initially put out allocations, it's based on projected student populations in schools. Some schools did not have as many students. That's what was originally projected, and were able to fully meet class size requirements with some less staffing. In most cases, those were vacant positions that we just eliminated. There was a couple of cases where we shifted folks between schools, but those individuals were involved in discussions and were willing to do that for us. We also, the next 2 items are fairly big items. We looked at both certified positions and classified positions as to the number of positions we normally have vacant. For example, right now with certified positions, we have over 50 positions that are vacant. We will average probably 35 or so of those positions year-long, different places. We will also have average about 27 or 28 classified positions vacant. So calculating those savings minus the cost of substitutes and so on when you have a certified position, that will save $1.8 million in certified and $936,000 classified. And then we did some other administrative reductions, assistant principal positions and so on, total of $278,000. So once you subtract that from the $83 million you saw earlier, that reduces the needed number to $76,820,347. Okay. Our current county appropriation is $67,945,918. Change fingers from pressing this down. I was getting tired. So that leaves us at this time needing an additional county appropriation of $8,874,429. This has been discussed with the county manager. He's sharing it with county commissioners, and I will be meeting with county commissioners at their meeting in December to make this request. Okay. These numbers is what I would recommend to you that we stay with. You as a board, you certainly have authority to change any of them if you want to, but we've worked pretty darn hard to be able to identify these areas. Have we identified everything? Probably not. There's probably something, but we've reviewed every single thing we could find to review. I want to explain a little bit now next of why this situation, the difference. In 2018-19, we spent a total of $69,930,114 in the local budget. Now, that's not the state and federal. It's the local budget. From that, there was a county appropriation of a little over $64 million. The fund balance you heard the auditor mention a while ago that was spent $5.9 million. That made up that 69. If you look at what I just told you we need this year, $76,820,000. That's an increase of $6,890,233. So if we can get the next slide. The reasons for these additional expenditures are these areas. The additional cost of financial software, workers' comp insurance increases, charter school payments we have to send on to charter schools, the local money that's provided, property insurance cost, $93,000. Increase in utilities, $1.2 million. Duke Power has gotten 12.5% increases for the last 2 years, and they're requesting another. We have to budget for that. Salaries and benefits, the state budget that the governor has vetoed, if those salary increases are given statewide, that will cost us an additional $3.5 million just to match what we have to do locally. And then the Exceptional Children Program, it will take us $2.5 million locally to fund what has to be done with Exceptional Children's Program this year. That's the total of the $8,555,987. Now, lastly, I want to explain to you the circumstances with Exceptional Children's Program. Okay. The state of North Carolina funds 12.75% of our K-12 population for Exceptional Children's Programs. For example, we have 37,000 kids. You take that and you multiply it by 12.75, and it's 4,717 students. That's what the state funds us for, regardless of whether we have more than that or not. If we have less than that, they fund us at the lesser amount. It's either your actual count or a max of 12.75%. We have in Johnston County now 17% of our K-12 population identified as exceptional children. We have to provide programs for those students. We have no choice. Federal law and state law requires it. But they give us no funding for those additional students. Those additional students cost us about $9.5 million a year in exceptional children's services. About $7 million of that we're covering through some state funds that are supposed to be used for other things. Your low wealth funding, your at-risk funding, we're covering most of that from those state funds where we've shifted things. But if you look at our number of EC students not funded, that's 1,573 students. And the allocation for those students would be $5,955 per student. You multiply that, that's the $9.3 million that we're getting no funding for. Just in this year, from last year to this year, we have grown 432 more students in exceptional children's program. And that calculates out to $2,572,560, which if you go back to the previous page, is where you see that. Is this 100% accurate? No. Can it change? Yes, because expenses fluctuate, emergencies happen, but this is my best picture for it at this time. And at this time, our next effort is to make the request to the county, see where they're. So far, they've responded very positively, but until a vote is taken, we don't know what will happen. We just have to wait and see. If we don't get all that amount, then we'll have to come back to the next phase, which will be a reduction in force, which will mean personnel. Okay, so that's where we are. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
Dr. Cosby, I'm curious about the $5,955 per EC student. We have students in this district who are far, far more expensive than that, who have one-on-ones, who have nurses, who have very serious either physical or emotional or cognitive needs. That's not the total cost. Is that the average?
It's the level that the state funds. Different states do it different ways. Most states base it upon what the exceptionality of the child is. There's some exceptionalities that cost you a whole lot less than this. For example, if it's learning disabled, that may simply mean going to a special teacher for an hour a day, or a teacher coming into the classroom working with a student for a short period of time. If it's profoundly handicapped, we have some students that cost us as much as $50,000 a year because they have their own nurse, they have their own physical therapist. Sometimes they have their own bus. You know, all of those things that can be very expensive. So this is kind of an average figure, but the average does not cover the ones we're not getting any money for. This is the $5,955 is what we get per pupil from the state and the federal together. Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you for the commitment of you and your staff to protect the classroom as much as you possibly can. I know these are difficult decisions to make. And I also want to thank you for your commitment to the teacher supplement being paid this month. That I've heard from many teachers, having been a teacher, that supplement made all the difference in whether I did Christmas shopping or paid property taxes. So thank you so much for that.
Dr. Cosby, I'd like to thank you for your thorough synopsis of the budget and where we stand today. I know you hadn't been here long, but you've spent every day of your short time here to get us where we need to be. And Ms. Sessons made a good point earlier in the board meeting. Some of you might not have been here. We're going to meet on a monthly basis to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse of this budget, because just a small change in circumstances with Johnston County Public School can cost a lot of money. And we got a large school system, and it all adds up to a lot of money. And we got stakeholders to answer to, and the only way we can do that is keep our finger on the pulse monthly and see where we are each and every month. And I challenge the board to continue to do that and keep this our number one priority to make sure that we protect the classroom.
Dr. Cosby, did I understand you to say on the certified vacancies and classified vacancies that this is typically the number that we maintain vacant each year?
That's correct. It's based upon an estimated average. Now, they can vary a little bit, but it's our best projection of it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Because there's always vacancies, and it takes time to fill those.
Right.
Plus, certified folks right now, there's more than normal simply because of the difficulty of finding certain certification areas.
Okay. So the intent is, even if there were these excess applicants, that we will not fill any of those teaching positions.
If we only get 8.8 million, that's correct.
Right.
We can't spend money we don't have.
I understand. And I appreciate what you've done to figure out how to move money to help impact the area of exceptional children. Certainly a great need in our county, and I've known parents that have moved to our county that have exceptional children, and they like the way that their students are treated. They like the way their students learn in our school system, so it says a lot. I think that 17% shows that there are a lot of families out there that feel the same way. I am concerned with cutting teacher positions, though, with the scores being the way they are in the county. I know we have to do something. It would be nice if we could get more local funding to cover more of the exceptional children, so that that's not the avenue that we have to take. But I understand you got to do what you have to do.
Those are very good points, and I appreciate you making them. There's always going to be vacancies. We've used an average number that's a lot lower than what our actual vacancies are. So I think we've estimated conservative and safely. We have not put a hiring freeze in place. We are moving forward and filling vacancies, but we're looking at each one of them as we do it to make sure that it's something that's essential.
Dr. Cosby, I do want to take a minute to thank you for going through the budget. And I know it took an enormous amount of time to go through and make those necessary cuts. And this is a lot of money. And if you look at this, I think from an objective standpoint, you've had a tremendous amount of influx in Johnston County. You've had a lot of people move here. And when you couple that with programs, processes that are mandated and not funded, you know, I asked a rhetorical question, what did you expect to happen? And I get it. There'll be a lot of folks lined up to throw stones. Bring a friend. This is a situation that we hope will improve, but until we address the amount of people moving into this county who want to go to school here, want to live here, want to work here, et cetera, and things that we are being made to pay for without given adequate or any funding, this is going to continue to be a problem.
I just wanted to say thank you for your transparency. As a policy review committee, we're not much involved in the budget, but this has been an eye-opening and very appreciated process.
Thank you, Dr. Cosby. Dr. Coates. Got a lot of doctors in here.
Oh, me. Good afternoon, Chairman Wooten, Vice Chair Dr. Smith, Dr. Cosby, board members, and Mr. Lawrence. Well, I have some good budget news because we have been awarded a grant from the North Carolina Tobacco Trust Fund Commission to build a structure at South Johnston High School to support the Ideal Academy and other uses that are, of course, secondary through the FFA program and ROTC and all of those things that can be extra. The amount of the grant is $210,591.10, and typically we don't come to you with grants other than to announce it, but this is a reimbursement type grant, so we do need board approval to move forward with that contract. This building would be completed. Target date is December 2020, and this grant includes cost for the building shell, bleachers, an oversized door, connection to water and drainage systems, concrete flooring, HVAC, electrical and lighting, tables and chairs, a gate, corral panels, pins, pressure washer to keep it clean, and fencing around the tanks. It would be located with close proximity to the main building between the band lobby and athletic fields near the current mobile units. So we're real happy about this. I think they started working on this in about 2017, and we were just notified a little while back. Principal Weaver is here. He has shared this with his community stakeholders, and they're excited. So we certainly request approval to move forward with this contract.
This will be a quick one, I bet.
Yes, I move that we approve.
Second.
A motion by Terry Sessom, second by Dr. Smith. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
great, thank you. And the second item, and I'm sorry I didn't even read my exhibit number, that was 7B1. This is 7B2. This is an update on the district strategic plan. As you recall, we formally approved and sent this plan to the state last month, and we agreed to provide quarterly updates to you. I will share with you that our department has worked closely with the other divisions in Johnston County Public Schools, and even though I'm presenting all of the updates, if you have a particular question about something that's not in my department, if you would be so kind as through Dr. Cosby to reach out, and we will make sure that you get the answers that you need to these updates. So, of course, you recall we have a very, I call it, I don't know if I'm not as great with words, but it's a very aggressive goal to, within 5 years, have absolutely no schools with a school performance grade below a C. And by 2022, which is not quite the end, after about 3 years, we want no low-performing schools. And we know that's a tough thing, but we believe we can do it. So these are the steps that we have taken to make that happen. So let's see if I can scoot through here. Of course, the 5 objectives, and I don't need to read those to you. I'm just going to give you a quick update on each one. So first, under the instructional excellence and alignment, we did purchase a new English language arts curriculum this year, and we've gotten really good feedback on that. We believe it enhances how reading should be taught with spiraling skill development instead of spending a unit on this skill, moving on, and spending a unit on a separate skill in isolation. So we're real excited about that. We've had a lot of training. Our folks in our department have worked hard for that. If folks couldn't come to us because of funding for subs, we went to them. We call that the road show. We've been out to a lot of schools. We've also developed a teacher leader program where we have a lead teacher from every school in English language arts to go back to the school as a contact there and a lead trainer person. We do not have the staff in a school district this size to provide all the support that everyone needs. Now, we're certainly going to supply all we can, but we need our teacher leaders in the schools, and we believe that's the right path to take. Under instructional supports, our multi-tiered system of supports and advanced learning coaches have been working with our folks on database problem solving with respect to students at the student level. We've supplied them before with the tiered framework of instructional support, which is linked here for your convenience. I won't go into that. And our department has also provided a document, kind of like a who to call list of what we can do to support you instructionally and who you call to get that help, and that's linked here as well. I want to spend just a second looking at this chart because while we're talking about budget, if you will recall last year, we had a discussion with you when we wanted to move to NWEA MAP because it cost a lot more money. And we had gone through a program evaluation, and we felt like that was the best program to meet our needs, to be a universal screener, and to give us predictors of what we needed to do for student instruction. And this chart will show you how closely it does align. So if you'll look at it, the chart on the left that shows our EOG projections for proficiency last year, and then the second line of that shows the actual proficiency, and this is across the district. And then the third row at the bottom shows you the current projection based on the most recent MAP assessment. But if you'll look at that 47.3% in math and go over to the chart on the right, the chart on the right represents the percentage of those students who were projected to be proficient who actually were proficient. So if you look at that, the math projection from MAP was that 47.3% would be proficient. Of those students, when we got their actual scores, not the whole district, but just those projected to be proficient, their actual proficiency was 89.4, and that's pretty close, and that's good information. The same thing with reading. Of the 58.2% that we projected would be proficient, of those students, 78.5 were proficient, and that was prior to the purchase of the English language arts curriculum. So we're real excited about that, and I wanted to share that since MAP was an expensive venture for us, but it's meeting our needs. Okay. With professional capacity and coaching support, in 1819, we piloted cognitive coaching with 2 cohorts and got really good feedback that it made a difference in their schools. It was good information. It was great training on how to grow leadership in the schools. So we hit that hard this year based on that feedback and have had great results. By the end of this school year, we will have trained 24 principals, 51 assistant principals, and 36 central office staff in this capacity, and we feel like that's another good way to support our growth in the schools. Outside of our department, we've worked closely with the Student Services Department to have an informed student SEL practice. We have school teams led by Dr. Amanda Allen. They've conducted professional development with those team leaders to go back to the schools in a train-the-trainer model. They've had voice in the district-level decisions that we've made, and we've also provided support visits. Our department has worked closely with that department. We are still wanting to look at things through the lens of relationship building and integrating anything with social and emotional learning into the academic model. In addition, we have collaborated with community stakeholders to support that district-wide social emotional learning, not limited to just the Department of Social Services and Alliance Health. We are working really hard to find information and support structures for anything that we cannot provide within our own district. So we are working very hard to have a SEL Standards Committee. More information will come about that at a later time. With our equity, that's a new department that we've had this year. They have developed a roadmap to equity. They want to increase student achievement in an environment that values equity, and all of us have received training in that. We so far have had trainings at K-12 principals meetings. We have had trainings in school by request. The cabinet has been trained, and in addition, they've had some requests, this committee has had some requests for community partnership training, which they have delivered. So we're very excited about that. The equity team has listed for you the 7 strategies on that roadmap, and they are continuing to work on more professional development. We've put some time on the K-12 agenda so that is a monthly event for our school leaders. With respect to the safe, orderly, and positive school environment, this is a big department, so we're just going to go through topically areas. Safety first. Security vestibules, they're under construction at each school. The goal is to have that completed by the end of the school year, and I think that's moving along very well. We have SROs now in our middle and elementary schools so that our SROs that are based at the high schools can serve only the high school population. We have our district safety officer reviewing all our crisis response plans, and he will certainly update us with needs that we would have to revise those and have some additional training if needed. Cybersecurity, you're going to hear a little bit about that more in a few minutes. We have a district-wide password change that's supposed to help us. That will be implemented in January. And everyone has been given directions on how to make that possible through our ID portal. We've provided information to students and parents regarding student digital safety, and we can never do too much of that, but we are doing a good job there. With respect to planning and operational effectiveness, with respect to growth, we have aligned our facility resources for a rotation schedule for capital repairs. Of course, this does not include emergencies. We certainly still continue to respond to emergency needs, but because of budgetary restraints, some of these projects that we would have been doing are on a temporary hold unless it's related to student safety and security. As already said earlier, we've collaborated with NC State through ORED, Construction Management, and County Commissioners to have a limited land use study, and bond projects are underway, and you'll get an update a little bit later in the meeting about those. With respect to facilities resource management, there's ongoing communication with the implementation plan and stakeholders. The construction updates have been added to the website with respect to the bond, and a bond and construction update will be provided to you later in this meeting. The Family and Community Engagement Department, the communications team does an outstanding job. They have frequent ongoing communications to families. The website design refresh with Blackboard Connect will be implemented in January 2020, and they update our social media platforms daily. And that's a big task, and they do a great job with that. Our information to the community is always current, and we get good feedback on that. In the section related to human resources with respect to recruitment and retention, they've primarily looked at that in two different ways, so I'll talk about recruitment first. Administrators at the school are provided with information about diversity. That's a topic that we're all wanting to be more diverse in our departments, in our schools, so that it mirrors our populations. So what this department did last year was look at what they did, how effective was that, and it was effective, so we've mirrored some of those things this year to continue to have a more diverse population. We've increased the number of global teachers from 55 to 61, that's a lot, through the Participate program. They have a representative on the Equity Committee so that we can collaborate and communicate what best practices are. We continue to review survey data to make informed decisions so that we are effective in our recruitment. We don't want to go into a situation that isn't effective or that it's not beneficial for our system, so they look at all of that data to make sure if we're doing the right things with job fairs, system fairs, et cetera, and continue to build partnerships with institutions of higher education, including our historically black colleges and universities. The evidence to support that, I'm glad that was included here. We've increased the number of student interns from 67 to 80 from 10 different universities, and that's really good information for us. With respect to retention, our human resources team sends cards of appreciation to newly hired employees. They continue to work with our school administrators with underperforming employees, and they also continue to train our assistant principals and principals to use the evaluation rubric to grow employees with constructive feedback, which, as we all know, has a direct impact on student achievement. When it's appropriate, they provide multiple strategies to a variety of stakeholders, and they continue to support and develop relationships with interns to retain potential future employees, and that's always good when we have, I always call them student teachers, but any interns in our system, we would love to keep them here. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
I just have comment.
Sure.
One, thank you for all the information. Everybody's busy, busy, busy. Appreciated the update on the NWE map, and that was a decision that was made a while back, and we were not all on the same page with that, so I'm glad to know that you feel that it was successful. While it was expensive, if I remember correctly, it was a savings of around $1 million or something to go from iReady to NWE
I don't
map.
remember the exact amount, but it was an expensive product, but we chose it because it was a better predictor.
And it was much less expensive,
Yes.
so we all heard from people that thought iReady was better, and we all heard from people that thought NWA map was better. And so that's always a difficult position
Yes,
to be in when you're trying to make decisions and you have people
right.
that like both.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm glad it is being a good predictor. Thank
It
you
is.
for sharing
And
that.
we have had the NWEA MAP folks in once in the fall, and we're having them again in the spring to review that data with principals, because our principals are inundated with data. There's data everywhere now, but if you don't know how to use it to inform instruction, it's wasted data. So that's one of the benefits of it, that they come in as well and provide professional development to our principals, and they get their data for their schools, and they can take it back and use it as is needed in their schools. The next update will be in February on our progress toward our goals. And when you were thanking me, that's a thanks to Ms. Gill and to Mr. Vetrano and to Ms. Roberts, because each department inputted their particular information with what they've done to make progress toward the district strategic plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Coates. We'll take a 3-minute recess, and we'll come back with public comment. Thank you. forward to public comment, and since we had a student here that has endured the entire meeting, I'm going to let you go first, Ben. We'll welcome Ben Martin to our meeting from South
Thank you.
Johnston High School.
Good evening, board members and everyone present. As he's already gone over, I'm Ben Martin. I'm from South Johnston High School. As we all know, a teacher from my high school has recently been suspended on allegations. I'm not here to discuss the allegations. I was not in the classroom. It's not my place to say what happened, but more so that I believe the investigation was very much mishandled, and it set a moral precedent that I do not believe the board should follow. See it afterwards. An investigation does not declare guilt. We can all agree on that. But comments that have been publicly made, such as, "This is an unfortunate incident and one I wish had not happened," very much do. These comments give vindication to people. And I don't believe, the same way that a judge would not be able to comment such as these during a trial, they belong nowhere in this investigation. This incident has not had shockwaves that have been confined to just the single classroom. All across our school, teachers are afraid they could easily lose their jobs over similar allegations, and students are afraid they're going to lose their teachers. Educations are being ruined over this. And Johnston County and Miss Lopp now face a national scrutiny from everyone. This has reached national news, and yet the people who are able to speak, the only ones able to speak, have remained silent throughout this entire investigation. Dilemmas such as this will always continue. Teachers are evaluated off a rubric holding standards such as reviewing culturally sensitive material and increasing diversity. But it seems that whenever these new innovative ways meet students who disagree with them, these teachers are thrown to the wayside. And it's very disheartening to other people. I personally am currently in internship teaching. We recently, she reviewed, talking about TA kind of intern teachers. And I'd always hoped to go to college, get a major in history and education, and come back to the county I love and to the school I love, because I love South with all my heart. But right now, I'm afraid. I don't want to do that. I don't want to enter into a career where I could I could be suspended, I could be just destroyed in the media with no one publicly standing up for me, and the exact opposite happening, public comments condemning me for things that I've not been proven on. I can't do that to myself, and I have to wonder how many other students feel the same way. How many other students right now are afraid to go into this field because they're afraid that they will be target of national scrutiny with no one to defend them. I'm also currently taking a leadership and ethics class. In that class, we've had speakers come, and they've told us about what it means to be a leader. And one of the character traits is that you nurture those below you. I asked the board, what have they done to nurture Miss Lopp? As she was publicly destroyed by the media and comments making physical threats against her, what has anyone done to defend her? As I close, I ask for a public apology by those who have made public comments. I ask the board to prove to teachers that they will stand up for them. And I ask the teachers to decide, do you have people in front of you who are standing up for you? And if not, how can you change it? As a student, I feel like it was my job to protect Miss Lopp. As members of this board, it is your job. I tell you guys that there's two options at this point. You can stand beside your teachers, or you can stand aside so that the people of this county can choose someone who will. Thank you, and God bless.
Ben, thanks for coming in today, and thanks for having the courage to come speak as well. And we'll take your comments under advisement. The entire board will. Thank you. Thanks for enduring the entire meeting to speak to. Mr. Kirkpatrick, how you doing, sir? Good. How are you? Welcome. Good.
Going to set my timer up if you don't mind. Didn't think you'd be calling me so quick. Okay. I have copies. Does the board like copies of what I'm going to say tonight?
We already have them.
Well, that was, there might be some different, okay. Count it there. Okay, you tell me when you'd like me to start. Okay. I'd like to greet the board and thank you for having me here today. My name is Kurt Peck, and I live here in Johnston County, where I purchased my home 7 years ago. I'm temporarily subbing in our schools. Forgive me if my comments are alarming, but I have asked to speak here tonight about some serious system-wide concerns. You will need insight into my background in order to be able to judge the significance of my observations and to be able to vet the legitimacy of my concerns. I am a certified science teacher for North Carolina. My fields of certification include physics, chemistry, biology, earth science, including all its branches, and I'm also certified for middle school science. I have a vast experience teaching in diverse settings from several states such as Georgia, Massachusetts, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. This includes teaching in a youth correctional facility for 5 years, teaching physics at a high school academy for the arts in beautiful Savannah, Georgia, as well as teaching in middle schools and high schools in low socioeconomic areas of different states previously mentioned. I was teaching in a nearby school system and have chosen to leave full-time teaching. I made this decision during the state pay freeze in order to pursue other interests and to reach economic goals I cannot reach as an educator in North Carolina. I've been working as a certified substitute here for Johnston County Schools for about 3 years, and during this time I've become aware of major systematic problems throughout the school system. I sub because I still have the passion to teach, and it allows me the flexibility to pursue my other ventures. I feel a need to bring what I have witnessed firsthand here to the Johnston County Schools, to the attention of the board. I know the board is aware of many district issues, such as teachers being hired with false teaching credentials, the issue of risk that accompanies the decision to not fingerprint new hires, the religious controversies occurring in our schools. With all these issues on our plate, I'm here to provide you with detailed information on yet a few more. I provide you with a rare opportunity to learn about specific issues in our school system that need to be addressed right away. I say that you have a rare opportunity because I don't believe you will come across another person that has collectively the diversity of teaching experiences, pedagogical knowledge, and the extensive subbing experiences I have here in the district for the last 3 years. I've worked in over 15 of our schools, including 4 high schools, 5 middle schools. At the elementary school level, I've subbed for many grade levels, for many elementary elective classes, and in elementary EC classrooms. At the middle school level, I have subbed most core content classes over all 3 middle school grades. I have subbed for most middle school electives and in EC classes. At the high school level, I have subbed all 4 grade levels, including many core content classes of all subjects, and I have subbed for many high school elective classes. And when I say I have subbed, I mean I have taught. I enter every classroom with the intention of fulfilling the role of the absent teacher. I hopefully bring unique skills and knowledge to the task that enhances the student learning, whether I'm in a high school chemistry class, in a middle school art room, or a kindergarten classroom. The term substitute often means different things to different people. Many substitutes approved by the board are lacking pedagogical skills, as they are uncertified, have never taught, or lack an education degree. I tell you all this so that you realize the lens and experience from which I view these district issues. I obviously am not afforded the time to discuss these concerns in great detail here and now. However, I have presented you all with more detail in writing. What you have received is still lacking considerable amounts of information, which may be provided at a different time or in a different forum. I can only hope that my unique experience will allow you, the board, to consider me as a resource of information on the following concerns that I have provided to you in writing. These concerns are, number 1, federal law is not being followed in regards to meeting legally mandated accommodations that all IEP students are supposed to be getting at all times, including when there is a substitute in their core content classes, whether that substitute is certified or not. Number 2, concern 2, substitutes are sometimes falsely accused of wrongdoing when a student or even an adult misinterprets an interaction due to a lack of understanding of context in a situation, or because a student is manipulating a situation to avoid getting in trouble. Investigations are handled with prejudgment and are conducted with leading, suggestive questioning, and other poor investigative techniques that sometimes lead to mischaracterization, slander, and defamation of character. Making false assumptions in egregious ways is rampant in this school system and has even been exhibited by some at the lower levels in the district's administration. My third concern, major security breaches exist throughout the school system. Some of you may be aware of, but I can only assume that there are many you are not aware of due to the mere fact that they exist. These include outer doors being left unlocked in rooms that serve as pass-throughs from outside trailers or other buildings on campus, to substitutes not getting a key to lock a classroom door during a lockdown live shooter event, to rooms being set up in a way that large pieces of furniture or cabinetry prevent all students from being able to hide beyond the view of the classroom door, to students circumventing expensive security installations in various ways, such as propping building doors open and letting people in. Speaking with me further could provide you an opportunity for you to reduce monetary risk to the district by lawsuits. More importantly, it provides an opportunity to reduce risk of harm to the staff and children of this county. I hope the board utilizes this opportunity to takes advantage of it to learn from what I have experienced in order to help improve these conditions rapidly. Some of these issues can be corrected inexpensively or at no cost, and can be done in a matter of days or weeks. We all realize that threats may come from an outsider. However, threats to everyone's safety can also come from an insider, such as a disturbed student. Correcting these safety issues should be of top priority to reduce monetary risks to the district, allowing resources to be used in a productive way. Please remember that nothing trumps the safety concerns that I have mentioned. I'm happy to speak with any of you directly or on any and all of these issues. I can be reached by email at cap180@yahoo.com. I appreciate the time you have given me tonight. I also appreciate the role you play in helping to make this school system better and keep it safe for all that are in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peck, and we do have your first letter that you sent, as well as the revised, and we'll take that under advisement.
And I have lots more detailed information.
I appreciate it.
But it has to be done in a sensitive way.
Okay.
To protect
Okay.
retaliation. Okay.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Gill.
Wow, that was loud. Good evening again, Chairman Wooten, Lady Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. Cosby, and Mr. Jim Lawrence. I have 5 items for you today. 2 of those are action items and 3 are for information. The final information item was added as an adjustment at the beginning of our meeting. The first item is Board Exhibit 7C1. Corinth Holder High School's furniture for the new addition. The construction on the 24 classroom addition is well underway, currently tracking ahead of schedule with an anticipated completion date of February 2020. We do have a transition meeting scheduled with the several key members of several departments over at the site to begin to start planning for all of the move-in. The furniture package was developed by Hyde Associates as a part of the original design, and it was bid in a total of 5 companies submitted bids. The tabulation sheet is attached, and we would like to recommend awarding the furniture contract to Interior Systems, Inc. of Weston, North Carolina, in the amount of $162,325.42. It does include an add-on of $4,776 for including cue ball glides on each chair to prevent damage to the vinyl flooring. And I bring that to you for approval today.
This is an action item, Corinth Holder High School furniture for classroom expansion. Entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Teresa Grant, seconded by Ronald Johnston. Any questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
The next item is Board Exhibit 7C2, School Nutrition Updates. The school nutrition department in Johnston County Public Schools is crucial to the health and academic success of the students. A presentation has been designed to provide you an update on the work of the department, the services provided, and an update on alternate trays and processes schools use to ensure that students receive their needed nutrition. The school nutrition department is presenting this to you today to update you on the current status. I'm delighted this evening to have Miss Dana Edwards, who is our Director of School Nutrition, who is a wealth of knowledge, and she's going to give you some background information. I'm going to turn it over to her at this time.
Welcome, Ms. Edwards.
Good evening, everyone. One of the first things that I had listed here, of course, my information is there for email purposes if you need to contact me for anything that I've mentioned here. One of the quotes that I had listed today, too, is we think food because kids can't think without it. We're all a piece of the puzzle for student achievement, and of course, we feel like we are a piece of that puzzle also, because a hungry child, of course, cannot learn. So federal assistance program, we are just an overview of school nutrition. We are federally assisted. We receive no state and local funds. We receive reimbursement from all of our free, reduced, and paid student meals. And also we receive the money that comes through as a student pays for their meal each day. We have 194 employees in all of our cafeterias across the county. Some of our biggest food sources that we have bids with is Cisco and Pet Dairy. That brings all of our food into our cafeterias. We are very pleased to say that we have an average sanitation grade of 99.8 across all of our 45 schools. We also serve daily breakfast, on a daily basis, 5,480 breakfasts. And lunch is 16,700, which equals about 22,180 meals a day across the county. For our meal prices, we have not increased our meal prices in the last 2 years. So breakfast K through 12 is $1.40 and reduced eats free. The lunch K through 8 is $2.30 and reduced is 40 cents. And 9 through 12 is $2.40 and reduced price eats at 40 cents. For staffing in our main office, we have 4 supervisors that oversee 13 to 14 schools apiece. We have a data processor for free and reduced meals, and she handles over 5,000 applications that are online this year, as well as paper applications and then automatic approvals also that come through our direct certification program through the state. We have 1 bookkeeper, 2 warehouse personnel that deliver to all of our schools. And then 3 training managers that actually go across the county and help with new manager training and also training of different needs that we see in the cafeterias each day. Our menus have to meet all of our federal regulations and also nutrition standards that are federal and state regulated as well. We have numerous medical statements and special diet needs across the county. Currently, we have over 800 medical needs and special diets, also religious preferences for diet needs also. We have 1 supervisor that handles all of those and that trains all of the staff accordingly at the schools. Social media has been huge this year. We have started a Facebook page. We have also been increasing our information that we put out on Instagram, so we make sure that we show off our amazing meals that we have in the cafeterias. And we have a lot of managers that like to put stuff out there also to show off the things that they're doing each day. Our website, it can be found on the school nutrition, on the Johnston County Schools page. And then we have an interactive web page also. The parents can subscribe to and receive menu alerts. Anyone can actually go out to the menu and see the menu daily, but also click on the allergens if they are working with a student or if they have a child that has specific allergy needs, and it will take off the items on that menu that they will not have, that they cannot eat in the cafeteria. So they'll know exactly what they can have for lunch that day or for breakfast. They can also download on their smartphone the information from our website and the menus. And then they can see it readily available on the computer. So it's very helpful for school nurses, office staff, and teachers wherever they're at whatever computer. So sometimes we know that students come in and they do not have money for their meals. So what happens if they have no funds? We involve the support from the school administrators, counselors, social workers, and we try to help all across with the applications online or even on paper. And we try to make sure that if they need assistance, they can also come into our office. We have a computer readily available at the front lobby, and we can help them with applications there as well. We can still do paper applications as well as the online ones. We can send out more across the county at any time if they need assistance. We love silent partners, PTAs, donations from some are called angel funds that they have at the schools, and school funds that assist with some of the students that need help with having money for their lunch or their breakfast. And we also maintain a process of how they handle those meals at each school, so we have that in a spreadsheet of every single school and how their meals are processed each day. So bottom line, no student goes without a meal, no matter what. We always make sure that they have a meal at any time they come into the cafeteria. And just a note at the bottom too is the alternate meals that we do give out. From last year, we had 23,693 meals that were given out as alternate meals. And last, I just wanted to mention too that we are a part of the School Nutrition Association for the state and national. We've always been a part of that for many years. And this year, I have the pleasure of working with them as a leader, as a vice president for our School Nutrition Association of North Carolina. I'm thrilled to be a voice and a presence for our association and helping shape the future for our students too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Edwards?
I just want to say thank you. Yesterday was another star in your crown. You all do such an excellent job across the board,
Oh, thank
not
you.
only for students, but for events that we really appreciate. Thank you.
I know that last year we started the share table. I think that was piloted at West Smithfield, maybe moved to a couple other schools. How many schools are doing the share table now?
We have, I would say, around a dozen that are actually starting that this year too, and continuing it from last year. We have some that keep asking about it too, so I know that we're continuously giving out information and trying to help them get started with that too. And that some of them have taken it and ran with it. They have cute little carts that they've put for their share table that they can carry around to make sure that they don't have any food left on it at the end of the day.
Well, I appreciate you. I know you worked hard to find a way for us to do that, and just another great way to make sure kids don't go home hungry as well, that they can take it home. So whatever we can do to, promote that and help the other schools get it going would certainly be a wonderful thing. But thank you for everything that you and your staff do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gill and Mr. Moore, I guess.
The next item that we have is Board Exhibit 7C3, which is a 2018 bond update. The following information is being presented to provide you an update on bond projects to date, and further information is being provided to assist you in the overall understanding of the bond, and this information is presented to you as information today. I'd like to begin by saying that, last year at this time we were working to get the vote out, and we had a 64% pass rate on our 2018 bond. We worked together the spring before that to identify all of the projects that we were going to do. And so we have included that again at your tables today, just to refresh your memory about the bond projects. As we go through the presentation this evening, I'll highlight just a few of the things and kind of the status of where they are. Mr. Moore is going to come up and take you through just a little bit about where we are. What he's putting on the website monthly now is an update that has drone photographs that helps folks to see what is actually happening. We also have some signage that we put out in front of all of our projects to say this is provided to you by the 2018 bond. So trying to make sure folks understand how their money is being used and that we are delivering what we said that they were going to receive within the bond. So moving forward, Michelle, just a quick overview of where we are, and you have seen these things. I'd like to point out to you about the 2017-18 school year, which was the growth of 1,200 students that particular year, and to point out that we continue to be a growing county, and that we have a history of successful bonds. And you can see what those dates are and how that has helped us to get to where we are. So that is a great legacy to be able to have. And I would like to share with you that today, as of today, we have 37,537 students who are with us. And our 10-day numbers were 37,411. So we continue to grow, but I just wanted you to see that, of course, they fluctuate. I wanted you to see that. Moving on to the next slide. Our bond was $76 million, as you recall. It's very easy to forget all this. It seems like we do this and then we have to go back and kind of revisit. $61 million of that was for our public schools, 15 for the community college. And remember, we went through a process of identifying facility needs for equity, plus going through working with growth management with our collaboration with ORED and numerics to identify the projects that were going to be included in the bond. Moving forward, in speaking about NC State, I'll let you know that they are housed there through ITRI, but we have an over 20-year relationship with ORED and helping us do our forecasting attendance boundaries. They are working with us now on a land use study, specifically because as we move forward, we have the need for more schools, and in particular, our Lynch Road site that we're hoping to work towards with an elementary school. They come in, they work with our town managers, they work with our mayors. They're doing that right now, and our staff members sit in on those collaborations to ensure we're hearing about new development and to be able to get their input. Some of the things that they do is the membership forecasting and creating our out-of-capacity tables. One of the things that we will be doing to improve getting the word out about growth management is we have included some of that work under our construction tab on the website, but feel the need to be able to pull that out under its own growth management tab and be able to provide that ongoing communication to the community about where we are with the process. What did it say that we needed as we approached the bond? Needed 2 elementary schools, a high school, and a middle school. When we worked with ORED, it was, as you recall, very much neck and neck with, do we do the elementary school first, do we do the high school first? At this particular time, we have identified a site at Lynch Road that we have design done on, and that the property is have an offer to purchase. We're working through some sewer options and looking at several sewer options at this time, and to provide us the needed service there. Once we work through that, our hope is to be able to finalize that and begin to move forward with that. That's a 21-22 opening of the school. Remember, all of these projects are staggered according to how much each bond is each June. We came into this first one receiving $20 million, so you try to get those larger projects in. Then when the community college comes in and they need part of that funding, so you work at what you're seeing in front of you is some of that staggering of the projects to be able to make sure you have money to make it to the end. Have to be very careful to monitor these projects so that you are able to provide what we have said that we were going to give the communities in each one of the areas. Moving ahead, I won't spend too much time on these except to reference a couple of them. We took this when we were working through the bond to all of the Rotary clubs, to different stakeholders, and what we did was to help folks see the connection between 3 major fundings that we had had over the course of the past several years. The 2013 bond and where the money was spent in those regions, as well as our LGC loan that we used. Remember, that was our $30 million loan that we got to do some of our roofing projects that we worked on. And then you would see the 2018 bond. That was a good visual, and we can cycle through just to take me to Clayton for a quick second, just as an example, because Clayton's one of the projects that we have up and coming. So you can see what we did at the bottom with the LGC projects, And then you can see that currently we have multiple phases going on at Clayton. The first phase is the vocational field house, tearing down all of the field house and all of the smaller buildings, kind of relocating, repositioning. We're very excited to bring that to you very soon so you can see what that looks like. And then redoing the vocational building. There is second phases, which goes into the auditorium, third phases, which go into some ADA renovations to the bathrooms. But this is a great set of slides for your information, just to help you to be able to communicate with your stakeholders about what we put out when we got the bond started, now where we are as we begin to implement the bond. So before I turn it over to Mr. Moore, I first want to thank him because, you know, you're only as good as the people you have around you. And as you can see from Dana and all the folks that I work with in that room, I have a tremendous team. And they just make me look like a rock star every day. So thank you to those folks. Mr. Moore is going to highlight for you some of the current status of where we are with our bond projects. And that's exciting because you actually get to see all those things take place. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And do you want her to cue up the October updates? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be here. It is an honor to stand for you and present the October construction update to you. I write these every month, and if you go on our website under the operations department and click on the handy construction tab, you'll see these updates, some of our upcoming and current bid opportunities, some of my tweets, information on past projects, also the bond plans and school capacity charge, projected growth, all kinds of handy information. So let's dive in. At Corinth Holders High School with the 24 classroom addition, Wimco Corporation continues to make great progress on this project, and as was mentioned earlier, they are tracking a couple months ahead of schedule, which puts them completing and turning over sometime in February. Keep in mind, Wimco constructed the school in 2010, and they also recently built Swift Creek Middle School, so they're very familiar with our model school, our USA design, and coupled with great weather this summer, they have rolled through that project. Continuing on to the track and tennis improvements project. Started out resurfacing and adding drainage at South Johnston High School and West Johnston High School, and at Triple S High School, we actually had to completely remove the track because that track was built without a proper subgrade. And also at South Johnston High School, 4 of the 6 tennis courts were built as well without a proper subgrade. So had to completely remove and start over there. Mentioned before as well, security improvements project across the entire district, moving along. And for safety reasons, I won't present most of the details with that, but I will say that project has gone very smoothly, and we were very intentional starting out to go to each school and walk the staff through exactly what's going to happen, because it doesn't all happen at one time. You can't do step 2 until step 1's done. So it's kind of been a process, but the principals and staff and students and parents and everyone's been very, very patient, and we should wrap that up sometime actually around December versus March. So everything is moving along fine.
Mr. Moore, as far as I'm going back to the tennis courts and the tracks, those, just for the public that's watching, those facilities will be ready for when their season is in season, correct?
Oh, I didn't mention, but those are done now. Yes, sir. We completed the last one last month, so everything's ready. I think we've mentioned the design and the bidding process with the Clayton High School Phase 1 projects, demo in the field house, coach's office, bathrooms, concession stand, ticket booth, and they'll all be compiled into one nice new building. And then we are renovating the CTE shop building. And you'll see a nice rendering here of a before. You'll see all the kind of hodgepodge of buildings, and then one nice new blue roof building. So, one more thing this summer was we collaborated with the DOT to add a exit at Polenta Elementary. That school is tremendously over capacity, and traffic was backing up out onto Josephine Road and also Cleveland Road. So they came out and constructed the exit, which allowed the carpool to go from 1 lane to 2 lanes. We continue to address the ADA access across the district. This is one example of Cleveland Middle School and South Johnston High School parking pad. Obviously, with 45 sites, it's a huge undertaking, but we have a list, and as budget allows, we're chipping away. Couple of other items, we recently installed new bleachers at Triple S and South Johnston for the football fields, and this summer I was busy placing 13 mobiles and wrapping up the LGC construction projects. Any questions?
Mr. Moore, I noticed that Westview bus entrance is on hold because we're collaborating with the state.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a little editorial. I opened East Clayton in 1997, and we had a public hearing about DOT work. I'm sorry, this is going to sound really critical, but I don't mean it to. It's just reality. In 1997, we held hearings for getting 42 widened. That construction happened last year. It started maybe last year, year before. This is not going to take 20 years to get this done, is it?
No, ma'am, and that project is actually under construction now, but the only place that we could put that second drive was inside that construction zone, and obviously that can't happen, but we have a very good relationship with them. No. So we're working to actually widening the existing entrance to separate the carpool from the buses. So, any other questions?
Any more questions?
Anytime.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
I hope that was able to provide you some overview of where we're heading. Many of these projects While we may not be talking about them, they are all in different phases of both planning, design, funding, thinking about how all of this total plan is working together. And we, again, cannot do this without the proper planning of our collaborations that we have, both with places like DOT, with ORED, working together to make all these pieces happen. And we have a tremendous relationship, again, with Hyde Associates as they help us to design these pieces. So it has been a pleasure to talk to you about those things today. The next item that I have is Board Exhibit 7C4, which is an authorization for a surplus sale. Whenever furniture or equipment has reached its usefulness to the school system, whether through age or disrepair, it's placed in storage waiting to be declared surplus. At this time, an advertisement announcing the date and time of sale will then be placed in a local paper with a listing of items. That is our process, and there's an attached list. We'd like to have a sale December the 13th, and we'd like to attain your approval to be able to use the list that is attached and authorize a sale by our facility services staff. And I bring that item to you for approval today.
Action item for surplus sale, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Teresa Grant, second by Ronald Johnson. Any questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
The next item I have, Dr. Cosby, permission to go ahead and move forward with item 5, is I'm going to have Mr. Shelton come out. Nathaniel Shelton likes to stay behind in the room back there for sound, but folks don't realize that he is our Executive Director of Communications. He works with us on social media, on press releases, on the technical side. We don't call him Mr. Shelton. Everybody in Johnston County Public Schools says, "Where's Nathaniel?" Nathaniel has been working throughout the weekend on an unusual and unique situation that has presented itself. I believe it was maybe Friday late in the evening or early Saturday, related to a image that presented itself when you went to do a Google search. And because it's taken me some time to educate myself through Nathaniel and his team on this, we thought it might be a good idea to talk you through the events of the weekend and how that happens, how we work through those kinds of processes. Sometimes it's learn as you go, and give you a brief update. Nathaniel, if you would come up and kind of walk us through this weekend and help us out.
Welcome, Nathaniel.
Hey, guys. So we had the image reported to us, I believe, early Saturday morning or late Friday. And typically, we've had that type of thing, not to that extent, happen before. And usually what you can do is go into Google and report it, and it's taken down immediately. Never had an issue before like this. For some reason, this particular situation, we flagged it as inappropriate, and it stayed up. And so then we began a campaign of flagging it as inappropriate. We also had people throughout the county, people in other states, adding new images to that same site to try to get that image off of our main image at Four Oaks. And it took, I think, until Sunday evening before we were able to get it down.
Well, we appreciate you getting it down. Any questions from the board?
Explain that it wasn't on our website.
No.
Yes, okay, so basically, our website, that particular website, has a Google profile associated with it, and anyone at any point in time could go in and add an image and say it's a picture of Four Oaks Middle, of any image. And somehow that one got published and continued to show up. Now, you could have searched Four Oaks Middle on maybe Bing or Yahoo. You wouldn't have seen it. It was solely with Google. And the sad part is that anybody at any point in time could go in and just add one. So we've got some plans in place to try to prevent that, but that was the issue.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
And if I could add, one of the things we really would like for folks to know is that, again, we could take down the district website, the school website. it would have done us no good. These are profiles that are created for all of our schools, for all businesses that you have, and they link to, back to us. Now, in this situation, what our steps were as we began to see it becoming more and more alarming to our stakeholders was we first did a JCS Tech Alert, which went out to all of our 5,000 employees, helped them understand to begin that campaign with flagging the photo. And then we worked specifically with Four Oaks Middle School to make sure that their folks knew that that administrative staff knew it was happening, we were taking it seriously, and that it needed to be handled. We have had it happen in another site, but again, if you have 10 pictures on a site for these profiles, that wasn't the first one that you saw. You clicked on it, and it would have to be 4 or 5 down. So again, it has to deal with search engines. When we found out about it, and we were desperate to try to get it resolved because of its explicit nature, what we did do was contact law enforcement and then work through the State Bureau of Investigation and their cyber division to assist us and working through it. So they have been collaborating, working to try to identify who would be doing these types of things to help us prevent it to happen in the future. One of the things that Nathaniel's team is working on is to get all of those photos to look as consistent as possible with a picture of the schools on there. That is a process that's outside of dealing with social media and our website. And again, that may help it to be that first image rather than that being, if there's no image there, you put yourself at some risk for doing that. But again, there is not a phone call that we can make to Google. It is simply reporting it again and again and again, and that exists for lots of folks who are working with Google, but they have algorithms in place that we are understanding to help. Sometimes we don't even see the images that come up because they're gone before we even see them. So for whatever reason, this one was more problematic, but we finally had it down. But we wanted to give you this explanation because we want to let you know that we take the security of our sites extremely seriously, and wanted to let you know that both Michelle Turnage and the technology services side of our department, as well as with Nathaniel's group in communications, we wanted to make sure that if there's anything we could do, we had explored all options, and then we communicated it to you as well. Any questions we can answer, anything that we have forgotten?
No, I just want to thank you for your efforts. I know that you all were working very hard to take care of the situation. As frustrating as it is, there is no number that you can call that takes you to Google. But thank you for your efforts, and I just hope they catch whoever did it.
I believe that is all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vetrano.
Good evening again. This time we just have one item for you. It's an action item. School Business Systems Modernization. You can reference Board Exhibit number 7D1. Part of Session Law 2016 mandated that the State Board of Education develop a plan to modernize the systems used by the Department of Public Instruction to manage and deliver funds and technical support services to local school administrative units and charter schools. A request for proposal was completed by the Department of Public Instruction, and they chose 2 companies, Tyler Technologies and Cherry Road Technologies, which falls under Oracle. So all LEAs in the state of North Carolina have to make a decision as to which of these 2 companies they would like to choose moving forward. Our Finance and Human Resources departments invited both companies to visit and present their products. The initial installation cost will be funded by the Department of Public Instruction, but the annual maintenance cost will be the responsibility of each local school system. After much research and collaboration, we feel that Cherry Road will best serve our needs now and moving forward in the future. And sitting behind me, we have Art Stanley, who spoke with you earlier. our finance officer, Tabitha Lee, Director of Finance, and Tracy Peden-Jones, our systems administrator. She works with both departments in handling these types of integrations that we would be undertaking. And they're also here to answer any specific questions that you may have regarding our proposed choice to this board. And this is an action item.
This is an action item. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Ronald Johnson, second by Terry Sessoms. Any questions?
Is the maintenance fee the $7 and the $9?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And thanks to the team behind me, and there are many others who participated in having those companies come in, and they asked lots of questions, and so I want to thank them publicly for all the time.
Thank
they
all of
spent.
you for your efforts. I appreciate it. We do have a special session meeting, facility needs and restart reform, and it deals with modifications in state reports on Monday, November the 25th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. It is an open session meeting, so please join us. And our next board meeting, can you believe it, is December. Board meeting is December the 10th, 2019. And actually, the closed session will start at 4, correct? And then after that, open session, and then public comment at 6. But I wish everybody, on behalf of the Board of Education, a happy Thanksgiving. Just don't eat as much as I'm going to eat. And entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Dr. Smith, second by Ronald Johnson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.